All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Eminences who are in attendance, your excellencies, our distinguished guests, our government officials, our esteemed ambassadors, and of course, you, ladies and gentlemen. I want to remind everybody, for those who haven't been taking count, that yesterday marked 400 days of Ukraine's valiant defense against the full-scale aggression, which, as we all know, is part of a 9-year war that stands in direct violation of all international law. Today, it is my humble honor to welcome you all to this special exhibit opening. The exhibit is entitled Ukraine Crucifixion Tribunal. This installation is supported by the Office of the President of Ukraine and was created especially by the National Museum of the History of Ukraine in the Second World War and the Bogdan Hubsky Foundation, Ukraine 21st Century. The team at the National Museum, under the direction of curator Yuri Savchuk, collected artifacts from field expeditions throughout deoccupied settlements throughout Ukraine in the regions of Kyiv and Chernihiv, then later in the fall in the Kharkiv and Donetsk regions, and then by November into newly liberated Kherson. As you make your way through the exhibit, you will see and share the space with objects that witness the horror of this onslaught, the war crimes, the murders of children, an intended genocide, sexual violence, enemy propaganda, the destruction of cultural and spiritual heritage, and looting. On March 4th, 2022, barely a few days after the beginning of the full-fledged aggression, the UN Human Rights Council urgently established an independent international commission of inquiry on Ukraine for this initial duration of 1 year. To date, that commission has found that enemy soldiers committed numerous crimes, including those based on sexual violence, torture, and cruel and inhuman treatment. The inhumanity documented in this special report includes examples of cases where relatives were forced to witness crimes committed against their own family members. Children were forced to watch their parents. Parents witnessed the violation of their children, and even the open murder of grandparents. In the cases they have investigated, the age of victims of sexual and gender-based violence ranged from the age of 4 to the age of 82 in the victims. Now, as many of you are aware, the International Criminal Court at The Hague, established under the Rome Statute of 1998, is currently conducting an investigation of the situation and prosecution, potentially, of the crimes in Ukraine. Already, the crime of this aggression against Ukraine has been recognized by a resolution of the United Nations General Assembly. A special tribunal, therefore, is potentially the best and straightest way to prosecute the leaders of the northern aggressor for their crimes. On 23rd of February 2023, as many of you were witnessed either in person or online, 141 United Nations member states voted in favor of adopting a new resolution. This resolution called for an end to the war against Ukraine. But notably, this 11th emergency special session of the United Nations General Assembly also emphasized the need to ensure accountability for the most serious crimes under international law committed in Ukraine through independent national or international investigations and prosecutions to ensure justice for all victims and the prevention of future crimes. And yet, today we gather here, very close by our beloved Secretariat building. We gather here on the eve of the aggressor state, set to lead the United Nations Security Council in the month of April. And so, as we are here, as this exhibit gives us the ability to over the next few days, we ask that you take this exhibit in and remind yourself who is waging this colonial war, and that the leader of this war is a war criminal who is currently wanted by the International Criminal Court for kidnapping children. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce our first speaker today, who will address you by video. Volodymyr Zelenskyy was sworn in as the 6th president of Ukraine on the 20th of May, 2019. Although he is licensed to practice law, surely his route to political office was a little unusual, as we all know his history. However, history books, in my mind, will likely remember President Zelenskyy most of all for his inspiring determination throughout this conflict. As one commentator put it after the president's address to the UK House of Commons via video, England under Churchill wouldn't bend to the fascists, and Ukraine under Zelenskyy won't roll over for Mr. Putin. Ladies and gentlemen, please turn your attention to the video screen for a special video address.
There must be justice. When there is no justice, all guidelines, there must be justice. When there is no justice, all guidelines in life disappear, except for the simplest ones, except for the desire to survive and take revenge. The revenge for all the evil committed when the enemy destroyed justice. Ukraine didn't start this war. This is an unprovoked and brutal aggression with one aim to destroy our nation and get rich on everything taken away from our country. The scale of the Russian crimes on Ukrainian soil lives, no doubt. This was the plan of the Russian leadership. These are the terms of the invasion they agreed to. All this terror, killings, torture, looting, wherever Russian troops entered Ukrainian territory, professional Russian torturers came with them. People are electrocuted, raped, shot in the limbs, starved to death, left without water and sleep. The burial of tortured people in the occupied territory, in the yards of houses, in the forests, on the roadside, in the companion of the Russian state flag. This is the way chosen by this state, the way of the terrorists, the way of the torture, the way of the murder, the way of the looter. This is Russia's state choice. And there should come state responsibility. Russia must be brought to justice for every wrong Ukrainian citizen will, for every destroyed life, for every Ukrainian family killed by Russia, besides homes and minds. We must bring back justice. We can bring back justice. We must fight evil. The International Criminal Court has the jurisdiction to prosecute Russian war crimes. The International Tribunal for the crime of Russia's aggression against Ukraine will have the jurisdiction to bring to justice the highest officials of the Russian police and army who launched this war of aggression. This special compensation mechanism will have the power to compensate Ukraine and every person affected by Russian aggression for the damage done by Russia. Compensations will be covered by the Russian assets and all those associated with it. This terrorist war against Ukraine should be the last such war. Never again should any other state step on such a path of terror or revenge will do it. That is why justice is needed. I thank everyone who helps us on this path to justice. I thank everyone who helps us to save people and protect our country. Life will win. Slava Ukraini.
We thank the President for his address. Our second speaker will be the head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, Mr. Andrii Yermak. Mr. Yermak is a key part of Ukraine's diplomatic efforts, frequently engaging with high-level diplomats around the world. From the very beginning of his appointment in the office, President Zelenskyy has relied on the head of his office as the point person for international negotiations, especially with the United States, as well as at the Normandy format negotiations preceding the full-fledged aggression. Having most recently met with the Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Program in Kyiv, it is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Yermak back to the United Nations virtually for this event. Ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention to the screen for our next speaker.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, thanks for visiting the exhibition called Ukraine Crucifixion Tribunal. It tells the true story of the most horrific war crimes committed by invading troops. We all know who is guilty. The Russian soldiers and those who sent them to conquer us. Exactly 1 year ago, on March 31, our troops liberated the city of Bucha, and we witnessed hundreds of horrific crimes committed by the Russian military and in that city. As at the end of the March of this year, we have recorded 90,000 war crimes. About 10,000 civilians have been killed by far, and 86,000 civilians infrastructure objects have been destroyed. Over 16,000 Ukrainian children have been taken hostages and illegally deported to Russia. The Russian war crimes are so shameless and obvious that the International Criminal Court has recently issued an arrest warrant for President Vladimir Putin. None of these deeds would have occurred if it were not for the one preliminary crime of aggression. It is not just Putin who is guilty of it. Dozens of people from his circle are the key decision makers in the first place. All these people should get that they deserve. To this end, a special tribunal to try and punish them for the crime of aggression should be created. The crime of aggression is fundamental and terrible crime. The evidence is plenty, so it is quite easy problem. And every suspected of committing it should be brought to the justice. The tribunal's jurisdiction should be broadly recognized. Among others, that applies to the states that have not joined or ratified the Rome Statute. So, the new body's decision should also be valid in the United States of America. Since the early days of the invasion in February 2022, we have been searching for ways to bring the aggressor to justice. We have studied all the historical cases, including the Yermak and Tokyo tribunals, and examined the international criminal court capabilities. We are facing the fact that in the last 70 years, no one was prosecuted for the crime of aggression. The ICC mandate does not provide for investigation of the crime of aggression committed by Russians authorities. Meanwhile, the courts can investigate war crimes, genocide, and crime against humanity. Ukraine cooperates closely with the court on the cases. We have passed many laws letting the ICC investigate any crimes inside Ukraine, but the one who have unleashed the biggest European conflict since the World War II are still not brought to justice. The Russian invasion of Ukraine started back in 2014. 6 years earlier, they attacked Georgia. Russia is a terror state. The fact it has been getting away with this. And we have got to change it. Last March, President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, and his office launched an advocacy campaign to create the treaty. Within 3 months, we got support the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe and the European Parliament. Since then, the national parliaments across Europe have adopted dozens of decisions favoring the initiative. A group of the 33 states developing the tribunal's operational model has already held the second meeting. The entering prosecutor office in the Hague is about to start collecting evidence of the Russian crimes of aggression. And finally, yet importantly, the United General Assembly should shortly adopt a resolution calling to punish Russia for the crime of aggression. On behalf of my suffering compatriots, I urge all of you to support the resolution, and I ask you to do everything possible to hold the Rome stage accountable for the crimes it has committed. Thank you for your attention. Glory to Ukraine.
Thank you, Mr. Yermak. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It is now my pleasure to turn to a good personal friend to many of people in the room as well as myself, the permanent representative of Ukraine to the United Nations, Ambassador Sergiy Kyslytsya.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I would like to thank the President of Ukraine, as well as the head of his office, for their powerful statements. It is an honor for me to welcome you to this exhibition, created by the National Museum of the History of Ukraine in the Second World War. The museum's team did a great job to give us an opportunity to reflect on the atrocities of the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine. This exhibition is a testimony to the brutality and inhumanity of the Russian army. It is a tribute to the dignity and resilience of those who suffered in the occupation. Finally, it is a reminder of the need of accountability for those who have committed such atrocities. The war will not be over with the end of hostilities, or even with the military defeat of Russia in Ukraine, if justice is not ensured for all victims. We referred to accountability in the Anger resolution adopted on the 23rd of February this year. This accountability should be an indispensable element, a comprehensive, just, and lasting peace. We are encouraged that the group of friends of accountability for aggression against Ukraine does its best to promote this logic here in New York. It is also of paramount importance that the core group on the Special Tribunal for the Russian crime of aggression works quite intensively to elaborate concrete proposals on the modalities of such an organ. The exhibition we are opening today is a call to action. We need to break the vicious circle of impunity and to prevent the crime of aggression, war crimes, crimes against humanity from their repetition, not only in Ukraine, but throughout the world. I have to confess to one crime myself. Like an hour ago, I told the team that was preparing this exhibition to remove the event flag, to put the event flag, and I said, you know, you're going to be in trouble if we put the event flag while we event. It's not part of this exhibition. But I do hope that one day this exhibition will be 1 mile from here in the event headquarters, and then the event flag will be there, as well as the flags of all of our allies, the United Nations allies who are fighting the Russian fascism and the Russian dictatorial regime. And I cannot finish this my remarks without recognizing among us the veterans of the war, the Ukrainian veterans of the war, who are standing to my right. They are here in the United States undergoing the rehabilitation. And it is not the plan of the team that was working on this exhibition that we have behind me the American prisoners of war flag, which is very symbolic. The Americans remember their veterans, and I'm sure that the Ukrainians will remember their veterans for as long as we live. Thank you very much. Let us recognize and express our gratitude.
Thank you very much. We appreciate those comments. I'm going to hopefully get through the next section with the help of some of our friends here to make sure that everybody's in attendance. But it is my honor again to present another dignified ambassador to the podium. Our next speaker will be the permanent representative of Denmark to the United Nations, His Excellency, Mr. Martin Bille.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Now, as one of the co-chairs and founder of the Group of Friends of Accountability following the aggression against Ukraine, it was important for me to be here and to say just a few words. So thank you, Sergiy, colleagues, for giving me the opportunity to speak on the crucial issue of ensuring accountability for Ukraine. The opening of today's exhibition shows evidence of what we know, that Russia's unlawful war of aggression has caused irreparable damage and intolerable misery for Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. Last month, we marked 1 year since Russia launched its full-scale invasion against Ukraine. Since then, the Independent International Commission of Inquiry on Ukraine has released its report on violations of human rights and humanitarian law, as well as war crimes and crimes against humanity in Ukraine. And this month, as was mentioned, also saw the issuance of 2 arrest warrants from the International Criminal Court. Today's exhibition underlined that the core of our international response must be our fight against impunity. We must continue to defend the human rights of all those affected by Russia's war of aggression, and to ensure that perpetrators are held accountable for their violations of international law, violations that continue to take place before our eyes. The credibility of our institutions, including the one a little bit further up the road, rests upon our collective response. So we must therefore stand behind all efforts to ensure accountability, including the investigation by the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, the Independent International Commission of Inquiry on Ukraine, the OSCE Moscow mechanism, the UN Human Rights Monitoring Mission, and the creation of an international center for the prosecution of the crime of aggression, as well as the important work of civil society actors in collecting and preserving evidence. They are all important contributions to the quest for justice, the deterrence of future violations, and the path to a just peace in Ukraine. This exhibition at the very doorstep of the United Nations is a strong signal that the international community cannot ignore this and must continue to condemn all violations of international law and to stand with Ukraine. It serves as a reminder to us all that our joint efforts to ensure accountability for Ukraine are more crucial than ever, and that we must never relent. Now, accountability cannot undo what has been done. It cannot right the wrongs, but it can tell victims and all those affected that we stand with them, that justice is on their side, and it will tell the perpetrators, those responsible, and all those who think that they can act with impunity, that justice will prevail and that impunity will have no place among us. Now, this is a matter not just for Ukrainians. Accountability is a matter for all of us. Because as a famous son of this country once said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. It is now my pleasure and honor to welcome our next speaker. Please welcome the permanent representative of the Republic of Lithuania to the United Nations, His Excellency, Mr. Rytis Paulauskas.
Much excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Sincerely thank you to my colleague and friend, Ambassador Sergiy, for inviting me to speak at this very important exhibition. This exhibition reminds us of a few very important things. It reminds us of the suffering of Ukraine and its people. In Europe, basically far away from the explosions of missile alerts, it is easy to get into it. It is also a reminder of the reason why we are working hard and why we must work even harder. Behind every military gear turned into artifact in this exhibition lies the harsh realities of atrocities, of thousands of lives lost, shattered, and millions of homes forever changed. This exhibition stands as a powerful testimony to the heart-wrenching impact that war can have on the human race. Dear friends, impunity fuels violence. The perpetrator will not stop if he knows that the justice will not find it. The aggressor will not stop if the consequence of the aggression will not come back to home. Russia's unprovoked and unjustified aggression against Ukraine is a flagrant violation of rules of international law. We must stop it. If we do not act together, we will send a signal to all of the world would-be aggressors around the world. Might makes right. And prohibition against the use of force as set out in the UN Charter is only working on paper. Amidst the atrocities and destruction that Russia is causing, there is hope. We admire the courage and resilience of Ukrainian military. Some I'm proud to know, who are fighting and sacrificing their lives for the independence and freedom. From the day